the video that it was the first time detectives learned that there was actually 4 people in that gray Jeep, and that the defendant, Jamel Demons, is in the rear driver's side seat.
New footage just dropped, and it could flip the YNW Melly murder case upside down. For the first time, we're seeing what really went down that night with Bortlen and Melly. 2 best friends lost their lives on October 26, 2018. What started as a normal night in the trap ended with 2 young kings laid out cold, and their day one homie locked up facing double murder charges. This is the raw story of how money, fame, and street politics tore brotherhood apart in one of hip-hop's coldest betrayals. The YNW crew had been tight since running the rough streets of Gifford, Florida. Melly's rise off Murder on My Mind brought fame, but also deadly tension with his own brothers, SAC Chaser 21 and Juvie 19. They all came up together in the same struggle, but the beef was boiling, and it was all about money. When Melly signed with 300 Entertainment for between $200,000 and $500,000 in July 2018, his crew felt left in the dust. Feds later pulled texts of Sack Chaser pressing him. "You blowing up? We still eating crumbs. Pay up or we done." In Gifford, loyalty was life or death. Betrayal could get you smoked. The YNW collective had survived poverty, violence, and the grind of chasing music dreams. For years, it was one for all, until the industry flipped the script and turned brotherhood into business. Melly's rapid rise was cracking bonds that once felt unbreakable. His collab with Kanye on Mixed Personalities put him on a whole new level. Doors opening for him that his childhood friends couldn't walk through. Expensive chains, foreign cars, big features. It all clashed hard with the daily grind his homies were stuck in back in Gifford. Street politics made things even messier. As part of the YNW Bloods, the Gifford Slimes, success had to be shared. But Melly's solo shine shook the hierarchy, sparking jealousy not just in his circle, but across the gang network. That loyalty tug-of-war between friends in the set was reaching a deadly breaking point. The crew was chilling at New Era Studios, laying down tracks, looking like just another night on camera. But real ones know, calm nights can flip deadly in seconds. At 4:08 a.m., surveillance caught all 4 leaving together in a rented gray Jeep Compass. That seating chart would later tell the story of who was headed straight to the grave.
The vibes look decent. I'm gonna be honest with you. It don't look like nobody kind of beefing. Nobody look too excited. You know, if somebody kind of got into it, like, they might be like, they're not just walking normal. Like, everybody looks kind of chill.
The footage shows Sack Chaser in the so-called death seat. Melly slid into the back left. Prosecutors later called it the perfect execution spot, right behind the driver with both targets in reach.
This is Sack Chaser. Where does he get in? Good. Remember they said it was a gray vehicle. He gets into, this is Juvie, I said, right? He gets into the front right side.
By 4:10 to 4:20 a.m., prosecutors claim Melly started firing from point-blank range. Sack Chaser took 8 shots, head, neck, chest, while Juvie caught 4 just as deadly. Autopsies confirmed stippling and no defensive wounds, meaning they never even saw it coming.
What prosecutors would later call the perfect position for an execution.
He even shot through the seat multiple times, and there was no defense wounds to be like, stop. You get me? It was that quick. Bang, 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 bang. That quick.
Riding with who they thought was a brother until the last breath. The medical examiner's report painted pure calculated brutality. Sack Chaser's fatal headshot ripped through his skull with such force it shattered the front passenger window. Juvie was hit in the cheek at close range. The bullet's path showing he never even turned his head. Both were blindsided from behind. The wounds told a chilling story. This wasn't panic, it was premeditated execution. The secluded location, the lack of cameras, and the point-blank shots through the seats proved advanced planning. No defensive wounds meant complete surprise. And what's worse, forensics later revealed some bullets were fired after the victims were already dead. Investigators say that was part of staging the scene, making it look like something else. Every detail, from the spot chosen to the final cover-up shots, screamed cold, deliberate conspiracy. The real cold-blooded twist came after the bodies dropped. Prosecutors say this wasn't passion, it was staged execution. After allegedly shooting his own homies, the killers pulled over, hopped out, and lit up the Jeep from the outside with a different gun to make it look like a random drive-by. At 4:35 a.m., YNW Bortlen rolled into Memorial Hospital with 2 lifeless bodies in the car. Calm as ever, he told doctors and cops it was a drive-by. Meanwhile, Melly had already ghosted, supposedly scooped from the fake scene. The prosecution's smoking gun, social media. When word spread, people checked on Melly. His reply to one homie, prosecutors say, was ice cold. 3 words, I did that. Prosecutors say that was nothing less than a confession to killing his own brothers. The motive? A toxic mix of money, jealousy, and gang politics. The same poison that's torn apart more crews than the feds ever could. Melly's rise had created serious money problems inside the squad. All 4 were tied to the YNW Bloods, the Gifford Slimes, where power and loyalty meant everything. But when bread and loyalty clash in the hood, somebody always ends up in a box. What made it even darker? These weren't random ops. These were childhood homies. Melly had their names tattooed on his face, proof they were ride or die. But before the bodies were even cold, detectives realized this wasn't a drive-by. It was a setup with evidence about to blow it wide open. The cover-up was so elaborate, it almost worked, showing how far someone will go to erase the people who knew them best. What looked like another routine hood shooting quickly turned into one of the most complex forensic cases Florida had ever seen.
To stage the shooting, because they believe people were already dead, they hopped out the car and then they shot up the car afterwards, and they believe those bullet casings they found at that spot was a .40 caliber.
Detectives said the scheme was next-level criminal mastermind. A setup so slick it nearly fooled the system. When Miramar PD rolled into the hospital, they locked down the Jeep and pressed Bortlen. His story was classic street talk. They left the studio, random shooters pulled up and sprayed the car. But when cops checked his route, the lies started cracking. Detectives shut down Miramar Parkway, combing a mile-long stretch for casings, glass, bullets, even skid marks. Nothing. Expanded another mile, still nothing. And yet the Jeep was full of bullet holes, shattered windows, and bodies. The missing evidence screamed one thing: this drive-by never happened. Bortlen's story just didn't add up. Drive-bys always leave a trail. Shell casings, broken glass, bullet marks on buildings, tire tracks from a getaway. But here, nothing. Detectives who'd worked hundreds of cases called it a giant red flag. Meanwhile, the Jeep was riddled with 16 bullet holes, windows blown out, body panels pierced. With that much gunfire, there should have been casings everywhere, bullets in the road, even damage to guardrails or trees. Yet investigators found zero evidence along the stretch Bortlen claimed. Then came the clincher, the glass. In a moving shootout, shattered windows scatter in a predictable pattern across the roadway. But crime scene techs found no glass at all. That told them one thing: those windows weren't shot out on the highway. They were blasted somewhere else entirely. The big break came when investigators worked backwards to New Era Studios, a place covered in cameras. That footage flipped everything. Bortlen never mentioned Melly being in the Jeep. If his story was true, Melly should have been shot too, unless he wasn't a victim at all. The footage also shredded Bortlen's timeline. He claimed they left earlier, but timestamps showed the crew walking out at 3:19 a.m. Even crazier, the video showed all 4 leaving calm and casual. No stress, no arguing, no signs they felt hunted, not the vibe of dudes who thought they were about to be sprayed in a drive-by. The studio's cameras told a whole different story. Inside, the 4 were vibing, making music. No beef, no drama. Nothing pointing to a blow-up that night. That footage crushed any claim that the murders came from a sudden argument.
A drive-by was staged at 4:02 a.m. The victims were already dead.
The autopsy showed that the external gunshot wounds happened.
But the real hit to Bortlen's story? He never mentioned Melly being in the Jeep. That wasn't a slip-up. It was a straight-up omission that screamed deception. If he lied about who was in the car, detectives figured he could be lying about everything. Then investigators went high-tech, digging into cell phone data, and the digital trail was brutal. Cell towers placed Melly, Sack Chaser, and Juvie together at a remote spot near US 27 and Pembroke at 4:02 a.m. They stayed there for 18 minutes. Until 4:20, the exact window prosecutors say the murders went down. The phones told the whole story.
And Mr. Demmons responds very succinctly: I did that.
Step by step, cell data gave detectives a minute-by-minute map of that night. The crew's cars rolled side by side on I-595 before splitting, one towards Sunset Lakes, the other into remote back roads. The twist? Melly and Sack Chaser had the exact same phone model on the same plan, letting investigators track them with precision. Data showed both phones hitting the secluded spot where the murders allegedly happened, staying there through the crucial window, then splitting, one phone back to civilization, the other straight to the hospital. It didn't stop there. Melly's phone tracked his steps, 70 inside the studio, 70 more at 4:02 a.m., right when the murders went down.
And they sit and they walk side by side for an hour that mile-long stretch, looking for evidence of this drive-by. Because evidence is the remnants a crime leaves behind. And in this case, the lack of evidence is very important.
Then 1,397 steps between 442 and 453, lining up with prosecutors' claim he was moving on foot, arranging his pickup. The ballistics blew the drive-by story apart. Shell casings inside the Jeep proved shots were fired from within.
Why is that important? That shows a gun was fired inside of that car.
No outside ambush. Then investigators checked the remote spot flagged by cell data and found 8 more casings from a .40 caliber gun. Forensics showed 2 shootings, the inside blast that killed the victims and the outside shots fired later to stage the fake drive-by. Even crazier, the casings didn't match. One set inside, another at the scene, meaning multiple guns were used to muddy the evidence. Trajectory analysis sealed it. The fatal bullets came from the rear left passenger seat, exactly where cameras had caught Melly sitting. The angles lined up perfectly with shots across the Jeep into the front passenger and right rear seats. The precision, the surprise, the cover-up all screamed calculated execution, not chaos.
In the video, that is the first time detectives learned that there was actually 4 people in that gray Jeep. And that the defendant, Jamel Demons, is in the rear driver's side seat.
The drive-by was nothing but a setup. The external shots at the remote spot were aimed to make it look like a passing car sprayed the Jeep. But investigators said the angles didn't match. The bullets came from someone standing outside, not driving by. The medical examiner delivered the most chilling blow. Those staging shots were fired after death. The victims were already corpses when bullets were pumped in to sell the fake story. On top of that, digital records showed the cover-up happening live. Melly allegedly FaceTimed his girl from the staging site and dropped pins to his crew arranging a pickup, all while building his alibi. Even with all the evidence, the case hit a wall. In 2023, the trial ended in a hung jury. 8 said guilty, 4 said not. The missing murder weapon, shaky motive, and questionable police work gave just enough doubt to block a conviction. For years, Melly and Bortlen held the line, claiming they were victims of street violence. But loyalty only runs so deep when life sentences are on the table. After 6 years of silence, the weight of multiple life bids cracked the brotherhood. On September 9th, 2025, loyalty officially died in the YNW case. Hours before his trial, Bortlen flipped, taking a plea deal that could send his childhood friend Melly straight to death row. 6 years of holding it down vanished overnight. When you're staring at life in a cage, even the hardest realize survival beats street code every time.
YNW Bortlen, he could took the deal. Where did I leave Melly though, brother? Where did I leave YNW Melly and the case?
The timing was pure drama. Bortlen's lawyers were ready for trial, jurors summoned, and then everything flipped. The charges stacked against him painted a picture of a young man cornered by a system built to break street loyalty, and prosecutors had been playing chess while Bortlen played checkers, steadily piling on charges until he was staring at 5 potential life sentences plus 75 extra years. What began as accessory charges, covering up crimes he didn't commit, exploded into 2 first-degree murder counts, witness tampering, and gang activity. It was a ruthless strategy. At first, he faced time he could have survived, but when Melly's conviction stalled, prosecutors escalated the heat on Bortlen. In Florida, first-degree murder isn't negotiable. It's automatic life with no parole. And that's the corner that finally broke him. After years locked up, staring at life with no freedom in sight, Bortlen's loyalty finally cracked. The witness tampering and gang charges stacked on him made it clear prosecutors believed he wasn't just covering up. He was obstructing as part of an organized crew. Each charge carried life potential, turning him from someone facing decades into someone staring at multiple life bids. The DA's strategy was systematic warfare. Crank up the heat until his resolve broke, and it worked. Under the plea deal, Bortlen dodged the murder raps completely. He pled to 2 counts of accessory after the fact, 1 count of witness tampering in a capital case, and unlawful use of a communication device. In return, the murder charges that guaranteed him a coffin or life were dropped.
Counts 1 and 2 is murder in the first degree with a firearm. Those are capital offenses. The maximum and mandatory penalty is life in Florida State Prison. Counts 3 and 4 are accessory after the fact to murder in the first degree. Those are each first degree felonies. The maximum penalty is 30 years in Florida State Prison.
Now, I know some of y'all are super thugged out in here. A life sentence. What? But when he was only facing 30 years, he was like, They added the murder charges afterwards to make that nigga know, oh, you think we only want Melly? We'll fry you too. I think that made him think a little bit different. When pleading to an accessory to murder after the fact, you have to acknowledge that the murder happened and you assisted someone or in some way to cover the murder.
But the real price wasn't time. It was the judge making it crystal clear. Snitching was part of the deal. The proffer requirement, a sworn statement forcing Bortlen to spill everything, is the deadliest part for Melly. By pleading guilty to accessory after the fact, Bortlen legally admitted murders happened and that he helped cover them up. That admission destroyed the defense's claim of a real drive-by. On top of that, acknowledging he was in the car gave prosecutors even more ammo, placing him at the crime scene when it all went down. The math behind his decision was brutal, but simple. With time served, good behavior, and a structured sentence, Bortlen could be free in 3 to 5 years. Versus murder charges, that was guaranteed death in prison. The proffer isn't just paperwork. It's cooperation that could bury Melly. It's the total collapse of Melly's defense. The Queen for a Day proffer forces Bortlen to answer every question about October 26, 2018. Truthfully, one lie, one omission, and his deal is gone, throwing him back under the weight of those original life or death charges. That setup makes honesty his only option, no matter how bad it hits his former friend. The framework also shields prosecutors. They don't have to twist his words because the agreement demands truth and can be revoked instantly. Bortlen's sworn testimony will carry legal weight, backed by the threat of losing his freedom. After 6 years of silence, the pressure of dying in prison finally shattered the bond between brothers. Street code says you never fold, but when death in prison is staring you down, even the hardest start thinking about survival. For Melly, locked up since 2019, Bortlen's flip is the ultimate betrayal. His retrial in January 2027 will likely feature that cooperation, the inside scoop prosecutors have been waiting for. This case shows how the system crushes street loyalty. Melly's camp keeps shouting his innocence, blasting prosecutors for railroading him. But the cold math of Bortlen's situation was clear. Years already served versus dying in a cell. The choice became survival over loyalty, and the toll is written all over them. At court, Melly's time behind bars was obvious. 6 years of isolation, heavy restrictions, and the constant stress of facing execution. Experts say even without a conviction, those conditions are punishment of their own. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one.